Okay. Okay, Tov. Today's Daf Yomi is Yevamos Daf Samach Gimel, but we're going to start on Yevamos 62b, around 5 lines before the lines get wide at the bottom of the page. Amar Rabbi Chanilai, Kol Adam She'elo Isha. Any man who chooses not to get married, does not have a wife, Sharai B'lai Simcha, is going to be basically left without joy. Wow. Below bracha, without any blessing. Below tova, without anything good. How is this the case? Below simcha, without joy, because it states, you shall rejoice, you with your household. Below bracha, without a blessing, because it says, maniach bracha al beisecha, to place a blessing in your house. Below tova, without good, because it states, lo tova yos adam levado, because it states, it's not good for man to be alone. B'ma'arava Amri, in the West, that is a reference to the land of Israel. They said below Torah, below Choma, that if you have a child, if you live without a wife, you are living without Torah, without a wall. Below Torah, because it says Hayim ein Ezra C B useshuya nidcha. Meaning to say, if there's nobody to help me and the salvation is cast away from me, and that's a reference to the Torah. And below Choma d'chsev nekeva t'sovev gever, the female surrounds the male, and that's why the woman walks around the chuppah 7 times, because she's protecting the man from harm. Rabbi Bar Ula Amar below Shalom, you're living without peace, because it says V'yadata ki shalom ahalech, because it says you will know that there shall be peace ahalecha, that there will be peace in your tent. So if you live without your wife, there'll be peace in there. You have peace in your tent if you have a wife. So he says, Amar Rabbi Yeshua Levi Kol Yodeh V'Ishto Shehi Yirah Shemayim. Anybody knows that their wife is God-fearing, Ve'ino Pokta, he does not visit with her, means he does not provide for her marital conjugal rights. Nikra Choteh, this person is called a sinner, as it states, V'yadata ki shalom alecha. Amar Rabbi Yeshua Levi Chayev Adam lefkod es isha ishto b'shah shel yotzei derech. If a man goes on a business trip, before he goes on a business trip, he's required to visit with his wife, as it says, V'yadata ki shalom alecha. It says, you shall know your tent, and then you go out on your business trip. So the Gemara says, is that the source for the idea that you're supposed to be with your wife before you go on a business trip? It's learned from over there. It says, that the woman is supposed to be with her husband. The woman is supposed to desire her husband before he goes out on his journey. No, so there's 2 verses. One verse is to tell us you're supposed to be with your wife, and the other verse is even close to her cycle. V'tama amarava ona. That's an ona. So let me explain what this means. What it means is that a woman who has a regular cycle, it's called a vesis kavua. She typically gets her period, let's say, on the first day of the month. Such a woman is supposed to refrain from being with her husband during that, not only during that period, because she's expecting the period, and then it's dangerous halachically, but also for the ona beforehand, which most commentaries understand to mean the 12-hour period beforehand out of stringency. But if the husband is going on a journey, so therefore that ona is waived, and she's allowed to be with her husband. And some say it's a dispute amongst the commentaries. Does it mean that they can actually have relations, or maybe they're just allowed to physically embrace each other? So the Gemara says, when do we say that the husband should be with his wife? If he's going on a discretionary business trip, but let's say he's going to do a mitzvah, then mitridi. Then there's 2 ways to understand this, at least 2 ways. Either he's going to then be, if he's going to do a mitzvah, mitridi, he's going to be preoccupied with the mitzvah, he doesn't have to be with his wife, or else he's not allowed to be with his wife, because if he's going to be become too involved with his wife, the mitzvah might become sacrifice. Somebody who loves his wife like he loves himself. Or he honors her more than he honors himself. Or somebody who guides his children on his right path. Or he marries off his kids close to the time where they're beginning to become adults, meaning he pushes their marriage. A lot of about it, such a person, the verse states, there'll be peace in your tent. One who loves his neighbors, one who brings his relatives close to him, and somebody who marries his sister's daughter. From the Torah, you're allowed to marry your niece. And we see from here it's a good thing, but you're not allowed to marry your aunt. When someone marries your sister's daughter, on top of 63a, and one who lends a coin to a poor man in his time of need. Well, obviously the poor man's going to need money in his time of need. Why else would he need it? So it means even if it's the person who's lending the money is in a time of need, even if that person's in a time of need and he lends the money, about such a person, it says, about such a person, it says that God will also respond to your calls. A person who doesn't have a wife is not a man. As it says, male and female, God created them. And he called them man. Any man who doesn't have real estate, Adam is not a man. As it states, the heaven was for God and the earth is for man. What does it mean when it states, I will make a helper for him? Zacha ozarto. If you merit, the woman is your helper. Well, zacha, if you don't merit, kenegdo, she is your opposite. She's your thorn. Kenegdo, the karinan kenigado. It's written kenegdo, which is with him, and it's written kenagdo, and we read it as kenegdo. So zacha kenegdo, lo zacha minagadaso. If he merits, she's his helper. If he doesn't merit, she's going to give him lashes. Ashkechei Rabbi Yossi found Elijah the prophet. Of all the things he could ask Elijah the prophet, what does he talk to him about? Marital bliss. I'm like Siv Ezer. He says, I'll make for you a helper. But Ma'isha was Arto Adam. Rabbi Yossi says, what does a woman really do for a man? So Elijah says, Adam maybe chitin. Person brings home the wheat. Chitin says, can you chew that wheat? Pishtin, he brings home the flax from the ground. Pishtin Lovich, can you wear the flax? She inspires him. She gets him to see, this is bread. This is clothing. She makes it for him. So now, since we cited Rebbe Lazar, we say other stuff. Amar Rebbe Lazar, my dachsiv, zos hapam etzamei atzmai ubasar basari. What does it mean when it states in the verse that Adam says, this is a bone from my bone and a flesh from my flesh? What does that mean? Adam wasn't sure who his mate was supposed to be, so he first tested every other animal, and when he tried to mate with them, when that didn't work, he came to Chava. Remind me after the Daf Yomi class, I could tell you a joke, but I don't want to do it while it's being recorded. So it says, what do you do with the verse? It says, all the families of the land shall be blessed through you. So God said, I have two blessings I could graft onto you. Meaning two converts who are going to come into the Jewish people, from whom the kings of Judah will come. Ruth, the Moabite, the Naamah Ammonite, and Naamah, the Ammonite, from who married Solomon, and Rechavam was born, all the Davidic line. All the families of the earth, even the families that live in the ground, i.e. the cavemen, they are blessed on account of the Yidden. All the nations of the land are blessed. From the Jews, even ships that go from France to Spain. They're blessed on account of the Jewish people. But Amar Rabbi Lazar says, In the future, all the people who are the craftsmen are going to go work in farming, as it says, "V'yardumi ani yoseim kol teovsei mashot melachim kol chovlei hayam." All the people who are the sailors are going to become the farmers. There's no worse craftsmanship than being a farmer. As it says, "V'yardu Rebbe Eliezer, v'yardu." They'll go down from being a sailor to being a farmer. Rebbe Eliezer saw a land that they were planting the cabbage like widthwise, which was not efficient because the animal has to turn all the time. So even if you would go lengthwise, being involved in business is better than being a farmer. Rav was walking amongst the stalks of grain, and he saw that the stalks were waving in the wind. Even if you wave at me all day, being involved in business is better off than you. If you take 100 zoos and you invest it in business, then guess what? Kol yoma basra v'chamra. You put 100 zoos in the stock market, the whole day you're going to be able to eat meat and drink wine. Mea zuzi ba'ara, but if you put it into farming, milcha v'chafura. Guess what? You're going to be spending your money on salt and undeveloped crops. You also have to sleep on the ground as a farmer, or sometimes you have to sleep in the ground. And guess what? People are going to be fighting with you. It's not a good business, farming. Still, you're better off planting your own crops rather than buying the crops. Even though it's going to cost you the same in the end, your own crops are blessed from you. Also sell your goods before you become poor. Hani mili bistriki, that's like the common furniture. Baglima low, Mr. Amule. But your coat, don't sell your own coat because you're never going to find such a good price for it. And then it says, Tom v'lo tashbitz, close up a hole before you do a major renovation, but shpotz v'lo tivni, but do a major renovation before you build a new project. Shakoa osek b'binyan. Whoever starts doing construction, mitmaskein, it's going to end up poor. If you start doing construction on your home, start building your new home, something's going to go wrong. Remember that line. Whoever ends up doing construction, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. You have to have deep pockets. Kafat zabin ara. Jump to buy the real estate deal, but matu and nasif itzasava. Be deliberate before getting married. Nachas darga nasif issa. Go down one step before you marry your wife. Means say marry a wife who's lower than you on the social scale, because if you marry up, you're never going to really be able to make her happy. But sak darga b'char shushvina. But when you choose a friend, go up one level and take a friend who's a little higher than you in the social scale. The only reason why punishments come to the world is because the Jewish people sinned, as it says, you take the rebuke, meaning to say, when you see all the bad things happen to the other nations, no, it's because the Jewish people sinned. Rav was leaving his uncle Rabbi Chia. Rav said to his uncle, so Rabbi Chia said to Rav, God should save you from something worse than death. So he said, Rabbi Chia was Rav's uncle, giving him some paternal advice. He said, God should save you from something worse than death. Well, it says, is there anything worse than death? Nafak dak v'ashkach. He went out and found the verse. Motzani marmi mavis. I found something worse than death. Esaisha, a bad wife. Bad wife is worse than death. Rav Rav's wife was giving him a hard time. When he said to his wife, make for me lentils, she made him beans. He said, make me beans. She made him lentils. She did the opposite. But then Rav had a son who he named Chia. When his son grew older, Apecha, he was smart. When he knew his father wanted lentils, he told his mother, Tata wants beans. And when he knew his father wanted beans, he told his mother, Tati wants lentils. So she did the opposite, and she made him in the end what the father wanted. So Rav said to his son, look, your mother's getting better. I'm like, I know who to come up. He said, no, I reversed it for her. I told her the opposite. I'm away. He says, this is what people say. The one that comes out from you is going to give you good advice, meaning take the advice from your son. But nevertheless, still he said to his son, you shouldn't act like this. As it states, that don't teach their tongues. If you teach your tongues to speak falsely, it's a sin. Even though here he wasn't speaking falsely. He really wasn't lying here. He was just saying, make for father this. And then she made the opposite, but it was not the truth. Rabbi Chia's wife was giving him a hard time. But nevertheless, whenever he would find something for her, he would wrap it up in his handkerchief and bring it to her. So Rav says to his uncle, but she gives you a hard time. He said, yeah, she gives me a hard time, but guess what? In the end, it's enough. She raises my children, and she saves us from sin. Yeah, she gives me a hard time, but we have to be grateful for the fact she raises my children, saves me from sinning. One time, we're on top of 63b. One time, Rabbi Yehuda was walking with his son, Rabbi Yitzchak, and they were reciting the verses. And what did the verse say? I found something more worse than death. That's the woman. Wife. To go man. He says, like who? So Rabbi Yehuda says to his son, Rabbi Yitzchak. So his son, Rabbi Yitzchak says, who's worse than death? He says, your mother. Mar says, is that really the case? But one time Rabbi Yehuda said to Rabbi Yitzchak, his son, he says, but another time Rabbi Yehuda said to his son, a person only finds koras ruach, he only finds satisfaction from his first wife, as it says, he says, like your mother, she gives me the best pleasure, joy, and happiness in life. So his mother was like this. She had a temper. She got angry real fast, but then with one word you could appease her. What's a bad wife? Puma. She prepares him a plate, but then the whole time he eats it, she's yelling at him. She prepares him a plate, but then she turns her back on him and doesn't even want to dine with him. Isha, once a man gets married on the day of his wedding, his sins are released, as it states, Matzah Isha Matzah Tov. You find your wife, you find something good, be a fake Ritzomei Hashem. But Ma'arava, the land of Israel, when a person would get married, they would say to the man, Matzah or Motza. There are two verses. One is Matzah Isha Matzah Tov, and one is Motza Isha Motza Marmi Mavas. So did they say, did you find a good wife, or did you find something worse than death? Matzah, they'll say Matzah Isha Matzah Tov. You found a good wife. Motza, they'll say Motza Ni Marmi Mavas Esa Isha. I mean, which one did you do? Did you find a good wife, or did you find something worse than death? Amarava Isha Ra Mitzvah Garsha. If you have a bad wife, you have to divorce her. As it says, Garesh Slates v'yitzei Madon v'yishpos din v'kalon. Amarava Ravatar Isha Ra Ksuvasa Meruba. Let's say you have a bad wife, and she has got a high ksuba, meaning you have to pay her a lot of money to divorce her. Tarasa B'tzida. What should you do? Give her a co-wife. The best way to solve a problematic wife is to give her a friend rather than to give her a thorn. A bad wife is worse than a day of a hurricane, as it states, it's a woman, a bad wife is like a hurricane. Come and see just how bad a bad wife is and just how good a good wife is. Look how good a good wife is. You find a good wife, you found something good. And if it refers to a good wife in the verse from Proverbs, then look, the verse is praising a good wife. If the verse is referring to Torah, look how great a good wife is, because the Torah is compared to her. And Kamara Isha, look how bad a bad wife is, because it says Motzani Marmi Maves, Isha. It says, I found something worse than bitterness. This is the bad wife. If it's referring to an actual bad wife, look how bad a bad wife is, because the Torah compares her to her. If it refers to hell, look how bad she is, because the Torah is compared to her. Says the Gemara, I'll bring something bad which you're never able to be able to get out of. What is this verse from Jeremiah reference to? Says the Talmud. This is a reference to Amarav Nachman Amarav Paravu Isharok Suvasa Meruba. It's a bad wife, but you can't divorce her because you have to pay a big penalty, big suva. So it's a bad wife, but the divorce is very expensive. There's nothing worse than that. The Sanani Hashem biadi wa Hashem placed her in my hand. I cannot get up. Zu Isha Ra, this verse from Eicha, refers to a bad wife, and she has a high ksuba. Ma'arava Amru, in Eretz Yisrael, they said, this refers to somebody who has, his money depends upon, he has to always purchase his food, because he's dependent upon the fluctuations in the prices. Then it says, your sons and daughters will be given to another nation. This refers to if you're given over to your stepmother. With a wicked nation, I will anger them. Again, the reference to a bad wife with a high divorce penalty. This refers to the sectarians. The wicked one says in his heart, there is no God. In the Bride, we learned these are the men of Barbaria and Martanai. They walk naked in the marketplace. There's nothing worse than the person who walks naked in the marketplace. And one time I was in New York City like 4 years ago. I was at my niece's bat mitzvah. We're walking in Times Square, and there's a naked man. He dressed like a cowboy. He was a naked man. There's nothing more. That's what it says here in the Talmud. There's nothing more disgusting than somebody walks naked in the marketplace, right there in the middle of Times Square. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Ehu Chabarim. This refers to the Persians. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Also, they said to Rabbi Yochanan, the Persians have come to Babylon. The Chavrayim. So Shaga Nafal, he cried out and he fell. Amalei Mekabel Shoch, he says, don't worry, they take bribes. He was happy. Tarat Yosef, he stood up straight. They said, God's are all Gimel. They said that these Persians have made decrees about three things for the Jewish people. He said, well, Mipnei Gimel. They did these things because we sinned in 3 areas. God's are all Abbasar, they made a decree that we cannot shacht our animals, we can't slaughter our animals, because we weren't giving the matanos to the Kohanim, the gifts to the Kohanim. We're supposed to give from every animal. We're supposed to give to the Kohen part of the forearm, part of the cheeks, and part of the keva. They said we can't use the bathhouses because we weren't going to the mikvah. They were digging up the bones of our ancestors because we rejoiced on their holidays. As it states, Hashem's hand will be upon you and on your forefathers. This refers to digging up the graves of the dead. In the sin of the living, the dead are dug up. That death is better than life. So how can death be better than life if you're dug up? So he explains, death is chosen for the wicked, because we don't want them to live in this world so that they'll sin more and they'll end up in hell. Now we're going to cite verses from Ben Sira. Ben Sira was the offspring of Jeremiah, but Jeremiah's seed was left in the mikvah, and Ben Sira's mother became impregnated from that. So Ben Sira states, Isha Tova is a matana tova bala. A good wife is a good gift to her husband. Uksiv tova b'chek yirei Elokim. Good in the bosom is one who fears God. Tinasein, tinasein will be given. Isha ra, but a bad wife is tsaras l'bala. She's like leprosy for her husband. Maita kante. What do you do with a bad wife? Yigrashena, divorce her, v'yisrapa mitzarasa. You'll be healed from your affliction. Isha yafa, a woman who's beautiful. Ashrei bala, so fortunate is her husband. Mispar yamav kaflayim. His days are like double, meaning everything, it's like he's living a double life. Hide your eyes from a woman's beauty, lest you are snared in her trap. Don't go befriend her husband to drink wine and beer with him. Because as a result of the woman's beauty, many people were destroyed. And all these people, many people were killed. There are many people who sell perfume who ended up sinning. It's like a spark that's a flame going. Like a bird nest. Their houses are filled with deceit. Don't worry about, Ben Sira said, don't worry about tomorrow's distress. You don't even know what's going to happen. Maybe you won't get there. Maybe the distress won't be there tomorrow. And you're ended up worrying for nothing. Keep the many people out of your home. Don't bring everybody into your home. But many people seek out peace. Only reveal your secrets to 1 in 1,000. The Messiah will not come until all the souls that are prepared in the body, that are guarded up in heaven, until all those souls come. As it states, whoever doesn't try to have children, it's like you're spilling blood, as it states. When it spills the blood and another person is spilling blood. Some cite this as the verse to tell us that abortion is, that this is a reference to abortion. And others say afterwards, you shall be fruitful and multiply. Rabbi Yaakov says, it's like you're diminishing the image of God, as it states, because it says man was made in the image of God, and right after it says you shall be fruitful and multiply. Ben Azai says, whoever doesn't have children, if you don't have children, Ben Azai says it's like you're murdering and you're diminishing God, as it states. So they said to Ben Azai, there's some people give a good drasha and they keep their words. There are there's some who keep the mitzvahs, but they don't know how to give a drasha. But you give a good speech, but you don't keep the words. Practice like I say, do as I say, not as I do. You're not married. So why are you saying somebody who doesn't have children is like a murderer? Ben Azai said, what can I do? My soul is cleaving to the Torah. Let the world be fulfilled and upheld by other people. All right, my friends. So we'll stop here. If anybody has any